go! I'm ready. I'm so ready to hear that, the horn. I've seen it from the other side, and let me tell you, it's contagious. Like, when you're on the other sideline, you're trying not to clap. You're trying not to get into it.
Welcome back to another very joyous edition of the Enough Said program. My name's Dan Barreiro, joined as always by Justin Gaard, and of course, it's Lori Fisher.
Oh, can you do a skull?
Wait, I couldn't believe you weren't doing it.
I don't
want to rip my jacket.
My hands together.
I don't want to rip my jacket. I better not before the show even starts.
That was a very weak attempt.
We don't need a Tommy Boy moment here.
Maybe we'll try again during the commercial break.
Maybe that's the way to go.
I doubt it.
The Vikings are home this Sunday playing the 49ers. They're coming off a win against the New York Giants last Sunday. A lot of praise for quarterback Sam Darnold's performance. The Vikings were expected to win, so now it's time to see how he'll do with the rest of the crew against San Francisco. Dan.
Well, it sounds a little bit like Lori Fisher, usually the Vikings cheerleader, is diminishing.
No purple today, I
the victory against the Giants, like, well, they were supposed to win.
Yeah.
No, but they talked a lot about Darnold. They were, all the analysts seemed very impressed with him.
That's another issue. I mean, the good news for the Vikings is they didn't play down to an opponent, because you could say, well, that's a team, we all talked about it, they almost needed to beat.
Yes.
The Giants started the season dysfunctional. They looked every bit as dysfunctional in their opener at home. Fans turning on Daniel Jones within minutes. The Skol chant dominating the proceedings about halfway through. But we've seen Vikings teams play down. And early, sack of Darnold early, fumble. And you're
First
saying,
possession.
Here we go.
Yeah.
They may win this game, but it's going to be tight. Instead, what they did is they played a really good, tight, professional game. Darnold looked precise. He looked like he knew what he was doing. He was well protected. Jones did exactly what those of us who've just praised forever the addition of him to this lineup is capable of doing. He did what he's supposed to do. He gave them a legitimate running game. And the defense was a great ensemble without Danielle Hunter, a lot of other new pieces coming together. With, I think, a really good game plan that had Daniel Jones confused from the beginning. So all of that, I don't think you ever have to apologize for winning as cleanly as the Vikings did against a very bad team.
Yeah, the Giants' issues are not the Vikings' problem. They shouldn't have to worry about those. But it was a nice, almost preseason game in a way, because we all agree that this Sunday is going to be a much different test, a much bigger test. We're talking about maybe the most consistent, preeminent NFL organization at this point, right? They're constantly
NFC, definitely.
Yes, they're constantly in the NFC Championship game. They're constantly in double-digit wins. I don't expect Christian McCaffrey to play. He's had the injury that he didn't play the opener against the Jets. It's a calf injury. There's no reason for him to go out and chance it and maybe be out more long-term. But this is still a legitimate offense. It's obviously a legitimate defense. Whatever you think of Brock Purdy, and you know I'm a Brock Purdy fan. I love how he plays, and he's a system guy, sure, but he runs the system pretty effectively. Whatever you think of Brock, this is not Daniel Jones coming into U.S. Bank Stadium, right? This is a professional outfit. Now it's, can Sam Darnold do what he did on Sunday against a much better team? Can Aaron Jones continue to be that difference maker? It's been interesting, to learn more about Aaron Jones, just how beloved he was as a Green Bay Packer fan. And we've had some Packers come over, whether it's Brett Favre, Ryan Longwell, going down the list. They missed this guy, not just because they didn't run the ball very well in Brazil last week, but they missed him just because of his overall vibe, his overall production, and obviously you see he's all in on being a Viking right now. So how long can this be sustained?
30.
Because the competition is jumping up now. The JV, the preseason is out of the way. Now it's the Niners, now it's the Texans, eventually it's the Jets, it's the Packers. We're going to see a lot more formidable tests here.
Giants are AA ball, and as you said, the 49ers are big time. They haven't won the Super Bowl with this group of players in this, through this period of time. But as you mentioned, they've been to 4 out of the last 5 NFC title games. They're a serious football operation, and they base, interestingly, all of what they do offensively on running the ball.
Yeah.
Enough said.
So the question is, can the Vikings change that? Can the Vikings do what they did a year ago, which was get ahead in the game? We're going to know a lot more about how legitimate this team is, because we know the Niners are definitely big time.
Next
You know,
up.
we've won 8 games in a row in Minnesota.
That's what I saw, yeah.
Which is crazy.
Which
Going
is
back
nuts.
to Greg
Are
Lewis.
you guys going to the game on Sunday?
I will not. I will be watching, though.
I'll be watching on Fox 9, I hope.
Is it Fox 9 this week?
No, it's not.
Damn, what do we...
It's too
I'm not going
bad.
to tell you
Should have
where it
worked
is.
on that.
Too bad.
before
Well, I
the
knew
show.
that. I should have known because she
Ixnay
didn't
on
lead
the-
with it.
Yeah,
We
you're
do
right.
have Vikings Game Day live. A scary sight
Is
on
Rosen
Thursday.
on it?
Yes. A scary sight
One
on
more
Thursday.
Skol on the way
Always
out?
right with the world.
A scary sight, though. This is serious. On Thursday Night Football, Miami's quarterback Tua Tagovailoa going down with a major concussion, his body immediately going into that fencing position.
Yeah.
This is the 26-year-old's third concussion in the pros. Should he even play again? Should he retire? Justin?
I can't go that far. I know people are clamoring for that. And
You're going to get ripped.
I don't know if I am. I think it's up to him. I mean, I'm not going to tell him what he should do. If he gets cleared,
idea.
They have all these protocols. They have systems in place. They're more
Because
serious
of him.
now. Yeah, well,
the new protocols are largely
true.
in place because of his previous concussion.
That's true. And it is amazing, though, that you look at some of the hits that he's taken, and they don't appear to be these crazy, jacked up hits that we would always hear about that we used to really celebrate more than we do now. But when he immediately, as Lori mentioned, goes down in that position, like, you know what it is. If you've watched Tua over the last couple of years, you know exactly what it is. But no, I'm not going to tell him you need to retire. Obviously, he's going to have to go through the protocols. He's going to have to go through the systems. But I can't say that, well, it's got to be done. It's got to be up to him and his team and his family.
Well, it's stunning to me that at this point he has not mastered the art of how, if he's going to run, scramble out, how to protect himself better of all the players. And I know players get competitive, and I think that might have been a third down.
Yes.
But the reality is that he doesn't know at this point, especially, that's what he must do. He may be the last quarterback to figure this thing out, which is unfortunate. And it's interesting what you said about, Lori said, should he go? I would probably recommend that he do that. But I'm with you, man. Everybody's doing the pointing the finger, lecturing. He's an adult, and there's protocols in place, and I'm not going to tell him he can't do whatever he ultimately decides to do. We get into this mode of, I think we send the message if we don't tell someone else what they must do.
Right.
And I'm not going to go there either. We'll probably both get ripped for it as being not humane enough, because sometimes players need to be protected from themselves. Go through the protocols. And given his history, you'd say, yeah, realistically, maybe it's just not meant for him, especially because he hasn't figured out that art. But I'm not going to tell him what he has to do.
Yeah, but if that was video of you on the football field and you watched that, wouldn't you go, maybe I'm all done now after that?
But that's, you're asking me. Let me make that decision.
If the doctors
tell you. Why do other
you,
people get to make that decision for him?
I just think it would be an easy decision. Yeah. But when it comes to football fans, who is the rudest of them all? According to a new survey by the sportsbook and online casino at Gamble, they say Philly fans that the Eagles are number one for starting fights. Probably
What's the point of this?
Did we need a survey?
No.
2, the Dallas Cowboys for bragging too much. And Viking fans, they land in the 16th place, being called out for drinking too much.
No,
that's a
really?
shot at you, Lori.
That's
a shot at you as a Vikings fan.
Very true.
I'm pretty sure they're calling you out.
None of that is.
So.
I know. Relax.
Particularly surprising.
No.
Right? I mean, the best Eagles stories, or the worst, still goes back to the last couple times the Vikings have played, including the NFC title game, right? The Case Keenum year.
Yes.
The stories that came out of there, out of that stadium, involving, again, family members of players, wives and children of players. And we're part of the problem, though, Guardsy. I think the media is part of the problem, because we've, over the years, almost romanticized just how vicious Eagles fans, almost like it kind of gives them this interesting character.
No, it's embarrassing.
The stuff that many of them go through goes way past charming, should not be enabled, should not be in any way celebrated. We can chuckle about booing Santa, even if that story is not particularly true.
Right.
But the stuff that you hear involving family members, and you better not wear their apparel.
That's it.
That's ridiculous.
That's childish.
Stupid, and truly uncivilized.
It is, but you're right. It has been romanticized, and too many people just go, oh, that's Philly for you.
That's what they do. That's why they're different.
Like, you have to worry about bringing your kids to a game at Lincoln Financial Field. No, I hate all of it. I hate everything about that. I get, making it a tough place to play. Every place should do that. But everybody should be able to go to a game and expect to have a decent time. The Philly thing is way over the top.
Real quick, are you buying? In fact, I saw this on Fox 9 Friday morning. So there's some survey ticket broker basically saying or predicting that like 34% of the crowd for the Vikings game Sunday are going to be 49ers fans.
I do buy that. Remember
do we think
last year?
It's going to be that high? I don't remember. Was it that
last
crazy?
year it was pronounced.
Okay.
Because there's Niners fans everywhere because they were a national brand. They are a national brand for so long.
Right.
Enough said.
And so, yes, there were a ton of Niners fans there last year. I absolutely
And I know we
buy
travel
that.
well, too. Don't send me the email. Well, Dan, we travel well. We get it, but it's just I thought
And it's never been easier to get a ticket if you're an out-of-town fan.
You know what, though? They may have, if they have the worst fan behavior, guess what the number one thing is?
What's
it's
that?
not swearing. It's standing up and blocking views.
Oh, really?
But I would say that for concerts, too.
I would have thought it would be throwing up on other people.
Or
That
spilling
might have been.
beer.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
number
that's more
two.
Packers fans, to be
The
honest.
Twins are looking to end the season strong after a rough losing streak. They took 2 out of the 3 against the Angels. A couple of big returns could help them hold onto that final wild card spot. Byron Buxton was activated from the IL, and Carlos Correa is back to batting practice. The Twins are at home this weekend against the Reds, Justin.
Well, it's time to play. It's time to get them in there. There's 16 games left. They're hanging on to a very slim wild card lead. They're obviously not going to win the division. And it's time to get these guys out there, whether it is Byron Buxton or it is Carlos Correa. Number one, just to see if they can actually do it. Because, well, number one actually is to solidify your wild card position, however tenuous it might be right now. You need your best players out there. But number two, you have to get them out there to see if they're going to be up for it. If they are actually going to be people that you can legitimately think you can count on
in the postseason.
And so you have to get the rust knocked off. You have to get them out there to see, can they perform, and also can they stay out there. And, you know, because Buxton's missed basically a month. Correa's missed basically the whole summer. You need to get them back out there here, and this is the time to do it. There's no more time to say, we're going to ease them in, we're going to see this. They got to get out there and play, because I think they're still in a pretty good postseason spot, but they're under 500 for the last month, and that's put that a little bit more in jeopardy.
Yeah, they look more vulnerable. You still got to like their first 2 starters. After that, it's a crapshoot. But there's a larger question, too, regarding the injuries that you're mentioning, and even the Royce Lewis situation, is what does this do to the team's projections long term? Because in the case of Correa, he's now got, he's got plantar fasciitis issues in both feet, right, over the last 2 years.
Yep.
You got that ankle issue that got him, having had him flunk the physical of 2 other teams. So, and he's got 4 more years on his deal. Buxton's got 4 more years on his deal.
Yep.
Lewis, you'd say, is too young to have injuries, but he's had injuries. So I'm as concerned about the idea of, are we ever going to see the Twins with these 3 guys in the lineup on a consistent basis at all?
Never really saw Maurer and Morneau in the lineup in the postseason.
Coming up next in our lineup, will there be another presidential debate and losing a legend with an incredible voice?
People start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there. And
welcome back to Enough Said. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump had their first debate on Tuesday night, and it sounds like now that will be their only debate, as Trump says one with Biden and one with Harris was enough. Besides the attacks towards one another on Tuesday, topics included abortion, inflation, Israel, immigration. National polls show that voters believed Harris performed better than Trump. What do you think, Dan?
Harris won it in a blowout, and what's interesting about, I think the one thing she needed to do, she did. The charge against her going in was considered kind of lightweight as a VP, came out of nowhere here. Why are we supposed to believe her all of a sudden? And I thought to that question, she answered it pretty well. I don't think she projected lightweight. She worked well without a prompter, right? Which is a part of what we were talking about as well. But that said, if you want to go boxing on the analogies, I do think she left some openings for Donald J. Trump. The problem for Trump, and you picked the right soundbite to play, is that by then she'd rope-a-doped him. She gets him going, needles him about crowd size, so he uses up all of his energy and all of his punches going down the usual series of digressions, that rabbit hole he goes down that in this case ends with talk about people Haitians eating dogs and cats and maybe parakeets too. I don't even know if that came up. So the fact is, she had some generalities in her answers, some non-answers she gave, but he got so distracted and so, like you say, punched out, going after the wrong thing. My crowds are bigger than yours get bust in. That he never bothered for basically, how long was the debate? Hour and a half?
Yeah, about 90 minutes.
For the last hour, he was done. From that point forward, once she went down that road and got him going, he had nothing left, but he was distracted. And so whatever vulnerability she had, which I think were considerable, no chance, because that once you get him going down that road, he's lost.
The theme of his closing argument, why haven't you done it, should have been the theme the entire time. That's where she is vulnerable, because people have noticed that you talk about all this change, you talk about this new path forward. 12 of the last 16 years, there's been a Democrat in office, right? That's a legitimate talking point that you should be hammering. By the way, on being bussed in to go to rallies and getting paid for it, both sides allege that the other one is doing this. Where do I get that gig? I do it for all sides. I would show up if they want to pay me and bust me in. I don't think it's happening. I agree with everything you just said. I don't think we're breaking any news that she won the debate, but I will warn everybody, and we did this on the radio, I feel like we were having the same conversation 8 years ago when it was Hillary Clinton. Setting the trap. How long can Trump stay on the tracks? Yes. Can Hillary stay above that fray? I thought she did that in all the debates back in 2016. It was a common theme. How long can he hold on? And we know the result of that election.
And remember, if there's not another presidential debate, we have the VP one coming up next month.
Can't wait.
Not long after the debate wrapped up, superstar Taylor Swift announced she will be voting for Harrison Walz on Election Day. She posted on Instagram, "I'm voting for Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior we need a warrior to champion them." She also signed it Taylor Swift, Childless Cat Lady. More than 400,000 people have visited her site, and that's growing, to her link for vote.org, the website, which helps people register and learn more about their rights. Do you think Swift's support, what do you think it means to this election, Justin?
Well, that number that you just laid out, you stepped on my touchdown call. That's exactly what I was going to point out. Usually these things, they matter a little bit. It's good to have endorsements, obviously. But this is one that I think is interesting to watch because she's got 283 million Instagram followers. We know her reach is massive. She's worldwide. She's got all the demographics, and she's apparently getting people to go check out this website. And so in a small margin election, which we all agree this is going to be again, we've been saying it for a couple of months, every little bit helps. Is it enough to swing? That would be something. I mean, I've already credited her, Dan, with saving American cities' economies one by one as she's toured around here. But the number of people that are now kind of checking into it, were all of them going to vote anyway? Who knows? But every little bit helps in this election, which is going to be, I think, remarkably close.
I've never believed that celebrities mattered. She might well be literally the one exception. And you hit on the key point. Regardless of whether, the endorsement means somebody who wasn't going to vote for Harris is now going to, the clicking on the site that basically allows you to register, right, or to get in position to learn what you need to do it if you haven't already, is massive. Those numbers are incalculable.
That's a huge number.
Never heard of anything like that before. So she might literally be, with her reach, the one exception to that rule. Can I squeeze in real quickly too?
Yeah, go.
The fact that once again, and again, maybe it doesn't matter anymore because we keep waiting for something that's going to convince some of the Trumpers that you can't defend his candidacy once more. Laura Loomer, who has now become one of his main advisors, right? Yeah. She had the quote the other day, basically that if Harris wins, the White House will smell like curry. Reprehensible, racist, pathetic, and yet by the day, apparently, she's becoming more and more the person that Donald J. Trump listens to.
Says a lot, right?
Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, called it out, said it was racist, which I don't even know what to think of. My head's almost spinning thinking about that, given her own history. But that should tell you about that story. It's just
my question for Taylor was it always planned that she was going to do it after the debate, or is it because she was pressured this week online about speaking out?
Well, Taylor doesn't bow down to pressure.
No, she does whatever she wants.
Taylor does whatever she wants whenever she wants. There are no coincidences with Taylor, though.
Yeah, everything's planned.
It was timely.
Good point. A tragic loss in the entertainment world. James Earl Jones passed away on Monday. It's a stage and film actor. He was one of the few performers to get an EGOT, the Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. His most notable role might be for everybody as the film's greatest villain. Can't say that. Darth Vader. He was 93 years old.
We spent a lot of time on him on the radio show, and I think he's the voice of the last 25 in pop culture. I think he is the voice. I got some pushback that there's Morgan Freeman, a couple other people, and they're wonderful. But to me, given his breadth, given the number of different voices that he carried, and given his backstory, which I'm not even sure I knew, that this is a kid who grew up in the South, had to go live with his grandparents in Michigan, didn't know anybody there, was traumatized by the whole deal, and developed a stutter, a significant stutter. The fact that that boy at that age came back over the years to grow up and become the voice that he did, that was, for me, kind of like this voice of authority.
Yep.
It's a remarkable story, and it's a big loss.
How lucky were the people that got to see him in theater? Like, I never got to see him in theater. We got to see him do things in theater, but never in a live performance. What a sight that must have been. Of course, the voice. Everybody's got their, when you work this long, and he worked forever, right? Everybody's got their favorites, as we talked about on the radio. He'll always be Terrence Mann to me from Field of Dreams. He'll always be Mufasa from The Lion King. And it's the same voice, right? It's not like he always had a little James Earl Jones, right? Sandlot, I know people in my generation are also going to hit, but when he showed up, you knew that the performance, it's one of those where when he was there, you knew the performance you were going to get, right? It just delivered every single time. The way he said things that nobody else could say, how he could say them, was ridiculous. Field of Dreams was just on TNT a couple of nights ago. They ran it like 4 times. I watched it twice. I know every single line, and I still wanted to see
Tom
it.
Clancy movies opposite Harrison Ford.
Welcome back to Enough Said. Time for the Lightning Round. Lynx playoff tickets are on sale right now. Their postseason starts on September 22nd. The Lynx are currently second in the WNBA standings, Dan.
I'm having a hard time talking about anything else when they're eating dogs and cats in Ohio. I'm sorry. But in all seriousness, yeah, I mean, this has been as good as you can hope for a regular season for the Lynx. They're in position to make a run. Do they want to avoid Caitlin Clark in round 1, which everybody I think thinks that means you got to stay at 2 rather than be the number 3 seed, correct? That's the question.
Yes, but that would be an awesome matchup. I think the Lynx want to send her home.
Well, that'd be a hell of a story.
I think that's a great story.
There's no question.
Everything that happened this year.
After a disappointing week, the Gophers bounced back against Rhode Island, winning 45-0. This Saturday is Nevada at home before Big Ten play starts next week, Justin.
Yeah, we'll talk about it on the Gopher pregame show. Tomorrow needs to be a continuation of what we saw last week in terms of how they went about their business, dropping back 30-plus times, completing 20-plus passes, moving the ball through the air, something we talked about all offseason, something we talked about all year last year. You brought this quarterback in to let him throw it a little bit, and they did that a week ago. You're not going to gain a lot about overplaying a bad Rhode Island team, a team lower in the FCS, but you can determine how you go about it and how you play. And for me, they get high marks in how they did that.
We both
week.
said it. Vikings are learning to run.
Yeah.
And hopefully the Gophers are learning to pass, things we've been clamoring for.
What a
and
time
if they
to be
continue
alive.
those trends, that's going to be a good thing for both clubs.
This is trending. Foo Fighters founder Dave Grohl is going to be a father once again, but the baby does not belong to his wife. He's admitted that. He's having a baby outside his marriage. It's pretty much everywhere.
What a caption. There goes my hero. That's funny. Whoever wrote that, that's good. What did Chuck Foreman say one time, Dan, about living in Miami, which could basically be, I was
afraid you were going to go with another one.
No,
not
that.
Quotes.
Not that.
Okay.
You got to have discipline to live in Miami.
Yeah.
You got to have discipline to be in showbiz.
Well, it's an interesting approach where he's, I think, decided I'm going to go frontal rather than run from this. So that's probably smart. Ultimately, what happens within his family is up to his family. That's their business.
Yep,
Probably happens more than we know.
Correct.
And get this, 1 in 4 Americans have trouble falling asleep when their favorite sports team or players don't do well. Minnesotans, on average, lose 43 minutes of sleep. Have you lost sleep over any of your favorite people?
Minutes?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. New Jersey fans have it the worst.
In my childhood years, I absolutely lost sleep over my teams losing or choking, which they did a lot in Chicago back in the day. So yeah, it's sad. You can argue, well, that's ridiculous. It's just sports, but this is how many of us are wired.
I'm just assuming that I have, because I have vivid memories after the 2009 NFC Championship game.